Welcome to this recording of Real PBR. I'm Luca Deriu, and this is the version 0.11. It is the newest version that I just built. So in this version, I worked on a new file system where we can create a new project or load a new project. The file system is going to hold all the various information we need for a Real PBR project. So you see here, I'm opting for a path and a file name that is .pbr. And once I click on OK, the file is created. Now we can proceed with operation. So the first I want to do is I'm going to import a 3D mesh. This 3D mesh is a file, an FBX file that I got from 3dsky.com. And once we select and we click on open, will be imported. Now, after the parsing process, you can see the mesh is reconstructed in Real PBR. And on the top of the window, we can see the project we are working on. So if we are curious about our path, we can always refer to that. Now, entering in tools, we have different panels. The first one I want to use is light. Although we have a HDRI light surrounding the scene, we may want to create custom lighting solution. So by using the mouse, by holding Alt button and using the right mouse button, we can navigate the scene. Now in here, I'm adjusting the size. Always remember that the bigger the size, the softer are going to be the shadow and the intensity. Now after creating the light, we can see the result. And entering again in Tools Render, we can enable the path tracing. The path tracing mode is, of course, more aggressive on the graphic card compared to the ray tracing mode, but is always going to provide a better result, a more accurate lighting scenario. So entering in Scene, I can see my graph with all my objects, and once I click on an object, I can see the name of the object selected, the position, the rotation, and the scale. Here the axes are X, Y, and Z. So by selecting the rotation on the Y-axis, so the vertical one, here our software is Y up, we can rotate by 180 degrees. Now, Tools Material Editor is where we can create and define the materials. I'm going to work more on this section of the software, so bear with me in this version 0.11 with the user interface that I constructed for the moment. So with the table selected, I created a new material, and now I'm tweaking the parameter, including the color, the roughness, and the metalness. Once I'm done with the color, I can enter in the map mode, click on the slot, and I can search for a map. Both the model and the textures are provided by 3dsky.com, so you can download the file for this exercise from their site. The color is always multiplied by a map by default, so if you want to tweak the color further, you can opt for a different hue, saturation, and value. And also the polishing can be adjusted. Now, selecting a new object, I can click on the plus to instantiate a new material. And in this case, I want to have a dark brown color. And I want to substitute the texture with another one. For this object, I would like to use also a normal map to define a corrugated normal on the surface. And after a parsing moment for the byte array of the data contained in the normal map, you can see the result. Now for the caps, the same process. Here I'm going to opt for a colder tint. And also in this case, I want to load a texture. Those textures are in JPEG file format. Also the PNG file format is supported. If I want to assign a material to a second object, all I need to do is to select the second object and click Set on the material. You may notice that every time I click on an object, the related material is highlighted. Now the final touch is for the T contained in the glasses. So in here, I am going to use the polish. I could use the the opacity, but in reality, with this gaze angle, we don't see much of transparency on it. But Real PBR, starting from version 0.10, fully supports refractive material, so we can also leverage on opacity. The final touch is about the camera position. Of course, this could have been the initial touch. It really depends on your workflow. So in here, I open the camera setting from the tool, and I'm defining the position. Now for the focus, you see that I'm changing the focus by pressing P button on the keyboard. So P, I meant it as a focus point. So once I click on P, I can define the focus according to the distance from the camera. By time to time, you may want to turn on or off the path tracing, as I just did here, to refresh the renderer. In a later version, I would like to add a shortcut for this path tracing, so it will be much faster to turn it on and off. Here we can set the resolution if we want to change, and by clicking on Save Image, the software is going to ask us where we want to save the render once done with this resolution and this quality. All we have to do is define the file name in PNG. Once we click on Save, the render starts, and the image will be saved at the end. And this is all for today's tutorial. Thank you for watching.